Okay guys, so we've got a big one today again. So we're looking at, do you have a slow metabolism? And if so, are you doomed to weight gain? We're going to try and look at the kind of research done into how the metabolism may affect your weight loss. Like if you've got a slower metabolism, does it actually make that much of a difference? If you've got a fast metabolism, does that make a difference to you being naturally thinner? So, a study done by Frankenfield, comparison of predictive equations for resting metabolic rates and metabolism in healthy, non-obese and obese adults. 70% of obese subjects were predicted accurately, 82% in non-obese for what their actual metabolic rate was. The underestimates occurred more commonly than overestimates, so people were slightly, it was more likely that they were underestimating their metabolism. So that just meant that people were kind of thinking they had a slow metabolism and they actually did. The maximum underestimate was 20%, and the maximum overestimate was 15%. So people kind of thought they were 20% lower than they actually were, and the highest was 15% more than they thought they were. If it's something that you really are unsure of and you do genuinely think you've got an issue, like you're better off like looking into it medically, like ask your doctor and try and find out because it's not worth just kind of guessing at, but also kind of look back at the last last presentation on underreporting and decide, have you practiced that first? Have you looked into that before you kind of go down the medical route? So does basal metabolic rate predict weight gain? Um, BMI and body composition of 757 participants who were weight stable. They then followed up with the participants at least 3 years later to check weight gain, and they were ranked in like how big, how high their metabolic rate was, and look the highest and lowest BMI as adjusted by the fat-free mass, blah blah blah. So top 15%, the BMI average of 2,000 calories per day, and the lowest was an average of 1,500 calories a day. So what we found from this was that the rates of weight gain weren't greater in the bottom BMI group, 0.3 kgs per year, than in the top BMI group. So they didn't kind of put any more weight on than the people with that kind of higher metabolism. The adults with the low BMIs aren't uniquely predisposed to future weight gain. Found that's basically what that's shown is that just because you've got a slightly lower metabolism doesn't mean you're more likely to put weight on than somebody who's got a slightly faster metabolism. Because to be honest, the differences aren't that high. Adults with BMIs that are well below predicted BMI, so if there is somebody who's a bit like got a good chunk lower, they still don't gain more weight than adults with BMIs that are well above, despite potentially like a 500 calorie difference between the two groups. Like you're not that doesn't mean that you're guaranteed that you're just going to put weight on just because you do have a slow BMI or better metabolic rate. The data just indicates that in a typical majority, Caucasian variations in BMI are not responsible for the tendencies towards weight gain. It's nice and slow, this one. In the real world, you're more likely to start and stop diets, exercise programs, and medications that affect your weight. And these are the things that are much more likely to affect weight gain, um, rather than just having a slightly slower metabolism. Like, if you have got a slow metabolism, but you keep exercising, you eat well, like you're gonna lose more weight than somebody who's got a really fast metabolism, but they don't train, they don't go to the gym, they don't eat well. That's their choice. That's something that they're doing, and you would still naturally lose more weight than that person just because even though you've got that slower metabolism. The implications of our finding is that adults with low BMIs either eat less or expend more energy in physical activity than those with high BMIs under the free living conditions. This one sort of looking into, does it again just sort of predict weight gain, the BMI? So the associations of resting metabolic rate with chronic conditions and weight loss. 339 participants data that attend a weight loss clinic. Over 12 months of treatment, men lost an average of 8 kilos and women lost 5.5 kilos, regardless of their sex and their metabolic rate, there was no correlation between how much weight they lost and how fast or slow their metabolism was. Basically, the study just showed that if you are given a similar calorie deficit, those with a lower BMR, those lower metabolic rate, don't appear to be at a disadvantage for losing weight. The vast majority of us aren't doomed to a life of weight gain. We can do something about it. It's just the ball is in our court. Like, if you do struggle, like if it turns out you have got a slow metabolism, sadly, it's not like an excuse. It's not something to hide behind. It just means you might have to eat a little bit less in a day, and you might have to move a little bit more. But it doesn't mean that that's massively going to affect your opportunity to lose weight. It just means that you have to be mindful of that. So whereas somebody else might be able to get away with 2,000 calories a day, you might have to have 1,800, or you have to exercise 200 calories extra a day. Like, is that really the worst thing in the world? Like, no, not at all. Not when you're using it to get the results that you're trying to achieve. It's just actively using it and knowing that it's there. As I said, if you really have got an issue and worry that you've got a slow metabolism, you can find out. It can be done. Just as I say, approach your doctor. But I would be looking at consistency of calories, consistency of training, consistency of how much you move in a day way before that point, and seeing actually what happens when you stick to that and using that word consistency a lot rather than sort of doing it a bit and not, and just then again sadly hiding behind the kind of slow metabolism thing as a reason why it's not happening, as the woman in the last seminar's video. Again, I'm not saying she sort of hid behind it, but it kind of was. She almost admitted that she just sort of lived her life thinking that was it, when really it was just not actively moving and as much as she thought, and she was eating way more than she thought she was. Okay, so next up we're going into what are your calorie needs. So actually, how many do you need in a day for kind of how your lifestyle is. Again, it's quite a good one to give you a starting point and get you moving from there. Okay, hope you're still enjoying it, guys. Keep firing the questions over, and we will do our best to answer them for you.